Hello,
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, shall we start? Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. Thank you all for joining us for this panel, Mentorship More Than Just Coffee. My name is Matthew Santos. I'm a 2L at the UC Davis School of Law, and I'm really excited to be moderating this with Frances. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. I am a 2L at USF. I'm also happy to be moderating. I'm also the PALS co-vice president for my school, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the conference so far. Also, we would like to now introduce our panelists. And just a reminder, their bios are in the virtual program if you wanted to just see some more information about them. And we'll start with Jennifer Sta. She is a trial attorney at the U.S. Department of Labor Office of the Solicitor. And then there's also Rachel Kinney, who is corporate counsel at Indeed.
We're also excited to have Mika Domingo, founder of MS Domingo Law Group, and Mark Punzalan, partner at Chan Punzalan. Without further ado, we can move into our questions. So our first question is, if you can introduce yourself and answer, how do you define a meaningful mentorship relationship and what role that has played in your own career? Mika, we can start with you.
Thank you, Matthew. Hello, everyone. I'm Mika Domingo. I'm a probate and trust litigator. As far as a meaningful mentorship relationship, requires commitment from both the mentor and mentee. So it's really important to find a mentor who is not only a trusted advisor and who has the experience you're looking for, but also someone who is genuinely interested in your development, one who can provide support and encouragement and insight into your work and career, give you critical feedback and advice on areas that need improvement. The mentor-mentee role and the level of participation should be clearly defined early on. So you want to ask questions such as, how will we establish and ensure regular ongoing interactions? What are some specific objectives that you want to achieve? And how will we know that the relationship has been successful? Mentorship relationships have played a critical role in my career. I look at my mentors as kindred spirits who help me formulate a clearer sense of direction. And in doing so, they serve as a source of knowledge and experience to tap into. So I've had both formal and informal mentorship relationships. In my previous career as a finance auditor, my mother, who was a CPA and professor, who also ran an international bookkeeping firm, she served as my mentor. And because she belonged to several professional organizations, I was fortunate to have worked with mentors through those organizations. And when I ventured into publishing through the Stanford Professional Publishing Program, I met some publishers from all over the United States, and my mentor and I eventually became business partners. Through that program, they had a more formal setup. And when I began my legal career in law school, two of my professors showed an interest, a genuine interest in me, and the relationship naturally developed. My first internship at the Attorney General's office was made possible by one of my professors who introduced me to her law school classmate who was a supervising deputy attorney general. And I also clerked for a judge who served as my mentor, who's still my mentor to this day. And now in private practice as an attorney doing probate and trust litigation, I seek out attorneys who are more experienced. And I also now serve as a mentor to some of my students and some newer attorneys.
Thank you so much. Rachel, would you like to go next?
Oh, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
You know that's going to happen with these Zoom things, so I apologize for that. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Francis. Thank you to F-Bank for inviting me to speak on this panel. I'm Rachel Kinney. I am corporate counsel at Indeed, and I am new to the in-house world, having just transitioned from private practice. And in terms of how I define a meaningful mentorship relationship, I think for me, it's one that's built over time and on a foundation, I think, of mutual trust for each other. And, you know, and looking back at the mentors who I still have, those people are the ones who have my back. And there's someone who genuinely cares about me beyond, you know, when I was a law student or beyond being just a litigator or an attorney, but someone who I feel genuinely cares about me as a person. And my mentors, they've acted as a sounding board. They've inspired me, they've motivated me, and of course, they've helped guide me professionally. And I must say, those meaningful mentorship relationships for me, they weren't built overnight. They weren't built over a few weeks. You know, during this pandemic, I became a plant parent, super into plants now. And I think cultivating a meaningful mentorship relationship is a lot like caring for a plant. So if any one of you out there, you know, has gotten into the plant game, you know, when you first get a new plant, especially if it's a young plant, you know, you have no idea what type of plant this is. You got it because it popped up on your Instagram feed or what have you, but you like it. It's new. To care for it, you have to make sure, you know, to give it the essentials, to give it enough sunlight, enough water to help it grow and thrive and kind of figure out its needs. Every plant has a different need, different care. You can't give it too much attention, not too much water. You're going to kill that thing. But hopefully after some time, perhaps some trial and error, hopefully your plant will reward you with beautiful foliage and growth. And I say that because I think it's a really good analogy for how my mentorship relationships have formed. They've always been formed over time. It's me being intentional about cultivating those relationships, me being patient. You know, it's not something that will yield any kind of concrete result. And if you're looking into getting into a mentorship relationship with, I don't know, an ulterior motive, like I'm going to be this person's mentee because I want to get this job, it might not be that successful for you. But if you get in really wanting to build a long-term relationship and put in the work, I think that is what has helped me personally form my meaningful mentorship relationships with my mentors and also with my mentees that I've had through the years and that I still have to this day.
All right, thank you. We're also getting really helpful plant tips, so I'm gonna take note when I am taking care of my succulents. Mark, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Mark Punzalan, everyone. I'm a litigator, partner at the firm called Punzalan. Rachel, while I love your plant analogy, I'm a little scared because I've killed every single plant that I've tried to start since the beginning of COVID. I think the only thing that is still alive are some chives that just refuse to die, but everything else I've killed. So I hope I'm a better mentor than I am a plant parent. You know, with regard to what's a meaningful mentorship relationship, I think the focus, and I think Rachel already alluded to this, is the word relationship. It's not mentorship, it's relationship. Like any relationship, it's a two-way street. Likability is important. You can't have a mentorship relationship if you don't like each other. And fit, I mean, you can't just look at someone's LinkedIn page or resume and say, that's my mentor. you really have to get to know that person over years, just like Mika and Rachel both talked about. I think the challenge for everybody, for the audience watching today, is how do you do that during the pandemic? And I think we'll get into that later. I hope we can give you some tips on that. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I have all the answers, but it does require building that relationship, and it does take time.
Thanks, Mark. Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Sta, and I am happy to be the president-elect of F-Bank. My day job, I am a trial attorney. Thanks, everyone. I am a trial attorney at the U.S. Department of Labor, where I litigate as well, enforcing all of the labor and employment laws that were born out of the civil rights movements of our country. In terms of so a meaningful, I think, mentorship relationship to me is somebody that really shares your values and your ethics, right? It doesn't matter what kind of practice area that you're concentrated on. I think when you really have folks that you could really aspire to be, I think that's what's really important, because relationships are about trying to, grow and build your skills. Yes, but I think more so, I think your work ethic, your values, and how you want to contribute to the world in this profession means a lot as well. And so I think that's definitely something to be mindful of when you're looking for a mentor.
All right, thank you all so much. It's really cool to hear about how, it's so important to form these mentorship relationships that are based in authenticity and shared values and trust. And I'll turn it over to Frances next.
Thanks, Matthew. So our next set of questions are going to be focused on finding a good mentor. And I also wanted to let the panelists know that although we have assigned you all different questions, if you feel strongly about a question or want to add on, you're more than welcome to do so. And then our first question is going to be from Mika. Besides mentorship programs from bar associations and ones that you can get through school, what are other ways we can find mentors or identify mentors at our workplaces and such?
Thank you, Frances. So most of you are probably already involved in so many things, volunteer work outside of your law school. These nonprofit organizations that you belong to, that can be a really good place to find mentors, because you're already surrounded by others who support the same causes, and you already have exposure to working on those projects with others, and therefore an opportunity to demonstrate your skills and work ethic. So see about who you like, who you've enjoyed working with, and reach out to them and start the conversation and see if there's an opportunity. Also, through your internship programs, you can identify individuals you may have built rapport with. It's a good idea to express your interest in being mentored and see if your colleagues would be willing to mentor you, or perhaps they know somebody and they can make that introduction to someone they think would be a good fit. Also think about your various networks. The more aware someone already is of your work and your abilities, the more effective they will be at mentoring you. Think about whether someone is already informally mentoring you. Ask questions and make that connection and communicate your interest in being mentored. So let's say you belong to a church or a spiritual group or a sports group or music groups of your family networks. You never know if someone from any of these groups can connect you with others who are looking to mentor. Again, it's important to begin with that conversation. Let people know what you're looking for. Let them get to know you. And sometimes once you have developed trust and confidence in someone, mentoring can happen naturally.
Thank you. That's all really good advice. And I agree. If you're already involved in things, then that's a perfect place to start with finding a mentor. And then the next question is going to be posed to Jennifer. How do you find mentors in particular fields? or if you have legal interests, where can you find mentors that are in the field you're interested in?
Well, I reiterate what I said about trying to find folks first with a shared value or, ethics that you really want to emulate. And I say that because when you enter law school and even post law school, you might find yourself liking one practice area and realize you like another, right? And but still kind of keep those relationships where it's based on something that is deeper than, oh, this is just what I want to do from 9 to 5 or for 80 hours a week. I think you'll help to really define more like what you want to do, right? And what kind of skill set that you want to build. And so for me personally, I thought that I wanted to do immigration law going to law school, right? And I actually did a lot of research on what kind of professors I wanted to be mentored by. And I came across Bill Ong Hing, and I didn't care what school that he went to because, what really appealed to me was that he was a social justice warrior and that he was a scholar activist. And that to me, actually, because I really based my decision on where to go to law school on that, he introduced me to all kinds of folks in the social justice world that I ended up wanting to do employment law, right? And advocating for migrant workers. So you never know where you're going to be. But I think if you really base on, your search for a mentor and a relationship on those kinds of values, it'll bring you to places that you don't expect.
Thank you, Jennifer. I also want to say I'm glad you brought up Professor Hing. I just took a class with him last semester. All of the USF students, you should all try to take a class with Professor Hing or do one of the immigration clinics. He's a very valuable resource. And then our next question is going to be posed to Mark. So we know that attorneys, they have a lot on their plate, and sometimes they're not able to respond right away, or they might not have time to take on a mentee. So when it comes to securing a mentor, how can you communicate clearly and also be mindful of the fact that, this mentor might have a busy schedule and, not impose on them too much if you're seeking a mentor?
No, it's a great question. And for the audience, I can identify with that because I could barely have time to even prepare for this panel. I missed a few of the preparation meetings, but yes, we are busy. At the same time, at simple email or reaching out for a cup of coffee, well, I guess when things are safe to open up again, that's really all it takes. I would encourage everyone not to be shy. There is no formal, will you be my mentor question that you have to ask anybody. It's simply reaching out to them. And I think it certainly helps if you have a connection. I think LinkedIn is perfect for that. If there's someone that you see out there that you want to reach out to, ask if you can get introduced to that person. You can easily see how you're all connected. So what I would encourage everyone to do is not be shy. I will say one of the best tips I ever received was when I started my practice in 2012, so about 9 years ago. One of my mentors, who was a former judge but had his own practice, told me one thing. He said, clients don't come to you if you just sit in your office. And I remember that very clearly because I stopped sitting in my office. I started getting out there and becoming visible. I think the challenge for law students right now is, how do you become visible? How do you become memorable and top of mind in a world of Zoom and phone calls? It does have its limitations, but it can be done. And so I just would encourage everyone to not be shy. If there's someone you want to reach out to, follow Jennifer's advice and just go ahead and reach out to them.
Thank you. And I'm also glad you brought up, you might not be able to meet up with someone for coffee in person, but there's definitely ways to network remotely like we're doing here today. And I'm now going to turn it over to Matthew, who's going to ask questions more focused on networking when you can't go in person.
Yeah, thanks, Francis. So this next question is very closely related to our previous question. When in this remote setting, what are some ways that you would recommend finding that mentor and connecting with them? And this one's for Rachel and Jennifer.
I think I would echo a lot of what Mika and Mark and Jennifer have mentioned, and that's looking at your network, looking at LinkedIn. And of course, convenient and easy way is to participate in the formal mentor-mentee programs like FBank's mentorship program, or like the programs that other organizations have, to seek those out. I think leveraging your network is really important. And you might be thinking, if you are a lot like how I was, and not having any lawyers in my family, not knowing any lawyers until I started law school. You'll be surprised though, when you look at your LinkedIn connections and see who those people know. And like what Mark said, don't be afraid to make that ask. Ask your LinkedIn connection, ask that FBank member. You have all of our bios. There are bios on FBank's website for all the directors and everyone on the board. Look at them, reach out to those folks, reach out to that professor, take that risk, and ask that person if they know anyone in a practice area that is of interest to you, anyone who they think might be a good fit, especially if it's someone who already knows you, and ask for that formal introduction. It really helps, I think, especially when you're in a remote setting where we can't really call someone up and say, hey, can we have coffee for 10 minutes? Hey, I'm going to be around your office. Can I swing by for happy hour afterwards? When we can't do that in-person stuff, I think it's even more important to try it and leverage your networks and make a warm call instead of a cold call. Ask someone to make that formal introduction. And what I mean about that is, Mark, hey, that judge you mentioned might be a really good mentor. Can I meet that person? Can you introduce me via email? Ask for that introduction. And then when that introduction happens, make sure you actually follow up. Because what has happened to me when an FBank member has reached out and said, hey, Rachel, you were an IP litigator, or you're doing antitrust. This student is interested in IP and antitrust. And I'm just connecting with you guys, and I'll follow up real quick and I'll say, hey, so happy to meet you. Here's my contact information. Here's my email. Shoot me an email separately and let's get something on schedule. And then I never hear back, and it's crickets. So make sure you follow up, especially right now when, we can't go have coffee or have a drink or whatever.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Jennifer, would you like to add anything?
Those are all kind of the same points I wanted to say, Rachel. Yeah, that's definitely happened to me, where folks have connected me to a law student or someone who's interested in employment law. I'll email back, and that person did not respond, and that's something that mentors and folks do remember. So keep that in mind. I think Matthew. So I can just share this. So Matthew, I think, did an excellent job in trying to network and meet people during this Zoom world that we're living in, right? Like he had a conversation with a past FBank board member who, that discovered, hey, there's this law student who is really interested in working for the government. Do you want to talk to him? And so then I said, of course. And so I talked to Matthew, and he asked, who else should I talk to? And I gave him a list of names. And that's the perfect way to really try to meet people in different practice areas that you're interested in. In terms of kind of cold calling, I think it's quite difficult, because I think sometimes where I get random emails from people that I don't know, I honestly don't pay attention to them as much. When they're vetted for by people that I know and people that I trust, those are more impactful for me in terms of responding to people.
Can I just jump in with one addition to that? I totally agree with Jennifer. I think the hard part about the pandemic is we don't have that natural interaction like the old days. And so I'm getting a lot of LinkedIn invites and emails from people I've never met. and I get it, right? We all have to sell, and you know, our firm uses a lot of vendors. But if I don't have either a connection or I've never met that person, it's very hard for me to want to respond. I mean, I get 20 emails like that a day. So I do think that connections make all the difference. Cold LinkedIn invites, cold emails, cold phone calls are tough. And so I think that's why it really is about who you know. I mean, I know you'll always hear that, but try to use those connections however you can.
Thank you so much for like all of your thoughts about that. I think what you were all saying about like being bold and creative with accessing our networks and asking for help and identifying where we need that help. I think we definitely want to carry that forward, especially when everyone's going through that sort of email Zoom fatigue. But I'll pass it back to, oh, I'm sorry. I'll move it forward to our next question. And this sort of moves from securing our mentor and establishing that relationship to moving it forward. And as you know, the theme of this panel is mentorship more than just coffee. So in that vein of authenticity in a dynamic, what were things that you did with your mentors that helped develop that mentor-mentee dynamic authentically, especially in the long term? Rachel, we can start with you.
Sure, thank you. So what has helped me develop my relationships with my mentors have been, I think, really intentionally touching base with my mentor without requiring a specific action from my mentor. So these are little quick touch points that help, I think, keep you in your mentor's mind. And I'll give you a concrete example. For instance, I'll pay attention to LinkedIn. I'll pay attention to emails that come through about panels. And if I see that my mentor is sitting on a panel, I'll make sure to, if I have time, to attend that panel. And then I'll shoot my mentor an email just to let her know, hey, I attended your panel and I found the information to be really useful. You know, cite some specific examples that are genuine, and then leave it at that and just say, I'm just checking in, you know, you don't have to respond. I just wanted to let you know, and hopefully we can touch base sometime in the future. Or if you see, you know, a mentor got a promotion, you know, you have to be paying attention, right? So when LinkedIn pops up and you see a position change or what have you, or if you see someone or your potential mentor or someone you want to build a relationship with has been named a super lawyer or a rising star, what have you, shoot them an email just to congratulate them. You know, no action needed from their end. You're not asking for them to review your resume or to connect you with anyone, but these are little tiny touch points that don't take a lot of time, but that require some intentionality on your part, because you have to be paying attention. You know, you have to keep your mentor or whoever, I say mentor, but like Mark said, it's not, sometimes the way you form a relationship, I think a lot of the times when you form that relationship, it's organic. It's not someone saying, will you please be my mentor? I think for me, all of my meaningful mentor relationships have not been formed in that way. So have those quick touch points that don't require a specific action or ask from your mentor, because you don't want it to feel transactional all the time, because this is a relationship, and it helps, you know, keep you top of mind with your mentor, especially now in the world of Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Mika, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you, Matthew. I definitely agree with Rachel about those touch points, and also what Rachel and Mark said about tapping into your networks and their networks, and what Jennifer said about making sure that you're connecting with people who share your values, because then it's easier to really continue those conversations with them. It just comes naturally. And as far as what I have done with my mentors, I've done different things. So I've there's one of my mentors who's a judge, and she has sort of a more formal setup with another bar organization. And what she does is she does these quarterly events or activities with the mentees. So we've done bowling, and we've attended baseball games, and we've played bocce. And I also have had mentors who've invited me to their work so I can observe, what they're doing with their trial. And some have also invited me to their professional awards ceremonies. So what Rachel was saying earlier, get engaged, make sure you know what your mentors are doing and show an interest, a genuine interest. I've also played golf with my mentors. And earlier, we were talking about the pandemic and how can we manage in the pandemic. Last year, I started my own golf club in an effort to connect with others. And although it's not a mentorship, club, what I'm seeing now, now we've been playing for about 10 months with this particular group, some of these relationships are forming. And we started with just 8 members, and now we're at over 20 members. So find something that you enjoy doing and just connect. And it's fun. It's fun to be able to participate in an activity and at the same time foster those relationships with your mentors.
Hey, Mika, can I join your club? Yeah,
Absolutely.
for 21?
Absolutely. Actually, I have asked Billy if he would be interested in our next one, which is a Tilden. I'll send you a flyer.
I'm in.
It'd be great to have you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of cool that, outside of just shared career interests, also doing these like golf clubs and other activities outside, that makes that that definitely brings that new element to the dynamic. Jennifer or Rachel, would you like to add anything before I turn over to Francis?
One thing I'll add aside from the touch points and, finding ways to connect like a golf club of Mika's is being intentional about setting aside on the calendar time to connect. And not to say that it's every month, but figure out timing that works once a quarter. But being intentional about setting something formal up, and even if it's just a quick 10, 15-minute check-in on Zoom or a phone call.
Thank you, Rachel. Francis, would you like to take over?
Thank you. Yeah, I do. I think that is really good advice to make time in your calendar, because even though it's not a formal event, you're just, sending an email or a phone call to someone that can really, get on the back burner with school and your other obligations. So thank you. And then, so the next question is more just talking about examples from your own mentorships. And specifically, this is going to be for Jennifer and Mark, whoever wants to go first. What is your experience with a mentor you have that you've had for a while, and how has that dynamic changed, if at all, or if you needed to do anything different later on in your mentorship, such as when you transitioned from a law student to an attorney, or from a baby attorney to a more experienced one, and how your mentor has helped you as you've progressed in your career?
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to rock, scissors, paper for who goes first. So about 20 years ago, I graduated college. My first job was a paralegal at a firm in San Francisco. I knew 0 attorneys other than the people who worked at that firm. I didn't grow up with any attorneys. There were no attorneys in my family, similar to a lot of us. So I looked up Filipino attorney, and this is before Google. I think it was like Netscape or some search engine that is no longer in existence. And it came across FBank, Filipino Bar Association of Northern California, and turned out someone actually worked right down the street. And that guy happened to be a guy by the name of Billy Chan. And he was already a practicing attorney at a firm called Hanson Bridget. I'm a paralegal, not even sure if I wanted to go to law school. That's how this relationship formed. Billy Chan is my partner, who Mika alluded to earlier, also my golfing buddy. And so we so he started off as a mentor. I'm in law school trying to figure out what I want to do. He had been practicing and was president of F Bank. Over time, though, that mentorship relationship turned into a business relationship. We are now business partners. Our firm has been around now for several years, although we had our own practices before that, and it's been a great relationship. So I'm not saying that for any law students that the mentor you meet will be your future business partner, but it might be. You actually have no idea where that relationship will take you. So I think going back to something I said earlier, fit, likability, all that stuff makes a difference. And Billy's just one of many mentors that I had over the years. Funny thing is, for me to talk about Billy, mentor is not the first thing that comes out of my mouth, but that's how I started, right? You don't know where these relationships how they turn out.
Yeah, there's so many great mentors that I've had that it's hard to kind of think about one, but I can maybe share two. But the first one is Bill Tamayo for me. I met him when I was a law student because I was so interested in really mixing the world of the law and activism. And there wasn't many attorneys that I knew who were like that. But again, going back to Bill Ong Hing, he was one of them. And he happened to be, and still does, although maybe not in the pandemic, plays in a band with Bill Tamayo. So they're in a band together. Meeting Bill for the first time was really life-changing. The fact that I can actually meld the two interests in my life, the fact that he made it possible, and not even make it possible, he was able to elevate into such a prestigious role where he makes an impact throughout the nation was just astonishing to me, right? And so he is very gracious with his time. I think when I first met him, I think I might have been a 1L. He gave me 3 hours of his time just to talk about why I wanted to be in the world of social justice and the law, right? And he shared with me kind of his life story about from I did work at Asian Law Caucus because this was my passion, but he gave me real world advice. It's like, working in that world, you don't make a lot of money, and living in the Bay Area, that's really hard. So he made me think about what was the realistic way to really make an impact, right? And here I am today working for the US Department of Labor, and I'm still one of just a very even less than a handful of folks who kind of work in that field. And I think having long-lasting relationships not only depends on yes, your passion and your values, but just you as human beings, right? Like to this day, I will go to shows that Bill has with his band, along with Bill Ong Hing. And, just knowing that I can support him in the ways that he really values for himself is something that I'm really proud to do. I did say I was going to mention another one. One is Abigail Rivamonte Mesa. So she is a USF alum. And I met her when I was a law student as well. And she brought me to my first F Bank event. And I think that's where I first met Mark as well. But with her, I think where that has grown is that now that I'm an attorney, she's not only just a mentor for me, but a sponsor, right? Which means that she advocates for me to get into places that I didn't even imagine that I could do, right? Whether or not she brings up my name when people are thinking about a commission in the city, or when people are thinking about a board membership in another kind of organization, she'll bring up my name, things that I don't even expect her for me to do, or even, positions that I've never even thought was possible for me. She makes it happen. She makes me think about it. So those are two relationships that I really value. And it's because, we share the same, not only interests professionally, but because, we really just value each other's just time and commitment to the community as individuals.
Thank you, Jennifer. They both sound like really amazing mentors. Rachel and Mika, do you also have any longstanding mentors you'd like to talk about and maybe discuss how that relationship has changed as time has went on?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, I have a couple of mentors who are judges. One of them, we're still in touch, but things have changed since her workload has gotten considerably busy. But another judge who continues to mentor me because he's recently retired, so he has a little bit more time. So we have our monthly check-ins. I also, even going back to my previous career, I had a mentor when I was first interested in engineering, and I am dating myself, this was at least 25 years ago. And even though I have now, I'm now on this legal journey, and he's still in engineering and he's in the Silicon Valley. What's interesting about that relationship is that has evolved over time. And whenever I have a new idea, I still seek him out for some assistance. And before I started my own practice, I was consulted by some of his colleagues in the Silicon Valley for some projects. So there are still opportunities that can arise from ongoing projects. So even though the relationship has shifted a bit, because we've solidified that relationship, we both make an effort to communicate and see how we can help each other out. And he's also a golfer, so it's inevitable, right? We're going to see each other.
And for me, one of my mentors I met, I think it was at the end of my first year of law school. So it's been a number of years, 9 years ago. And I remember, and she was my supervisor. I was working there. She was in-house counsel. She had practiced for a number of years at a law firm, and now she's in-house counsel. And I'd worked there for just a year and a half, but I maintained my relationship with her through law school and even afterwards, connecting with her, letting her know, hey, I'm in private practice now. I know you were in private practice. What are some pointers for how to do well in this field? And then just, those little touch points. And I'll tell you, I've had this relationship with my mentor for a number of years now, and I've seen her grow from when she was an associate corporate counsel to now GC of a major organization, which was her dream job. I remember her telling me when the first year I met her, my dream job is this. And then now 9 years later, she got her dream job. And so with my relationship with her, I found that she really has helped me sketch out my own career path. She has helped me process and really hone in on the aspects of what I was doing that I really liked, what I didn't like so much, and what I wanted to do more of. And she has opened opportunities for me that I think would not have been opened. And like what Jennifer mentioned with Abigail putting her name out there for opportunities, it was a lot like that. She alerts me to job postings that she knows of because it's in her inner circle. And she has opened a door for me to get interviews, to go through, to be one of the top 2 finalists out of 500 applicants. She opened those doors for me. And I didn't get that job, but I'll tell you what, that experience of having gone through that interview process for a job I really wanted. So I knew early on that I wanted to go in-house, but I wanted to spend some time in private practice to get my feet wet, get some experience before I go in-house. And that job that I didn't get, but she gave me the opportunity to interview for, help me get the current job that I have now, because I was able to go through that process, this high stakes interview process for this highly coveted job with hundreds of applicants. I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity had I not fostered this relationship with her over time. And it wasn't something I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm looking for an in-house job. What have you got? It was, she knew, through the course of my mentorship with her that I was always interested in going in-house. We've talked about ways for how to get there. And then when an opportunity came up where she thought I would be a good fit, she alerted me to it. So lots of great stuff when you really foster that relationship.
Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences, and I'm glad you've all been able to really benefit from your mentorships, and I'm sure your mentors have benefited from knowing you as well. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and our next couple of questions are going to be focused on just anticipating when unexpected stuff happens and how to maintain your mentorship. So this is going to be for Rachel and Mika, whoever wants to go first. And it's what should you do if your mentor is being unresponsive, or you've had an initial meeting and it didn't go well? What should you do from there?
So if your mentor is being unresponsive, I think it's important to take a pause and see if maybe the lack of communication can be attributed to your mentor's change in work demands. So perhaps your mentor is in trial, or maybe attending to a family issue, or maybe your mentor is on vacation. I think it depends on the duration of time, right? Like how the frequency and duration, like how long has it been since you've heard from your mentor? And that's why it's important, again, to know what they're about, because then you have a sense of what their workload might be like. You want to give your mentor time to respond. Sometimes, as what happens with me and my students, I do have a lot of mentees, sometimes the intention is there. You want to reach out, but then there are all these other responsibilities that really dominate your time and your energy. So I guess you'll have to sort of gauge, how long has it been since you've been trying to reach out? And if after several attempts and your mentor is still unresponsive, I would, and I'm sure everyone has other ideas as well, I would send a letter, an email or a letter thanking your mentor for the time and the commitment so far. Because you don't want to assume that they don't no longer want to mentor you, but you want to thank them and maybe let them know that you're around if in case they still want to continue. You want to leave that open. You want to leave the door open. But as far as what you asked earlier, if you've had an initial meeting with a mentor and it didn't quite work out, and you know for sure that for whatever reason, you just really don't want to even give it a second try, I would still be gracious and just say thank you for your time and leave it at that. You want to make sure that you show that you're respectful of whatever time they've given you so far.
I definitely echo what Mika, everything she said about being gracious, about being in touch with what's going on with your mentor's life, and being flexible and patient if they're in the middle of the trial, if they're going through a transition. One thing that I'll say is have a conversation at the outset of your relationship with your mentor. When you first meet this person, maybe if it's not the first meeting, it's the first couple, but have a conversation about your mentor's preferred ways of communication. Some people respond better to email. Some would prefer you just give a quick call. Maybe it's even texts or social media, what have you. It really depends on the person. So have that conversation and find out. And if your mentor is being unresponsive, like what Mika said, just, be patient and give them time to follow up with you. But don't give up so easily, shoot them an email if that's their preferred way. Wait a few weeks. If enough time has passed, you can even maybe just pick up the phone real quick. Just be like, hey, just wanted to touch base. It's been a while, just saying hello. And if picking up the phone, if all of that doesn't work and you still want to just give it a go, one thing you could do is you can, and I've done this, especially in private practice, when I'm trying to get a hold of someone, a partner, they're not responding to me. It's not really mentorship relationship with this particular example, but I ask a person who that person's working with, who I'm comfortable with, and I say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of so-and-so. And do you have any ideas about his schedule? When would be a good time? Oh, they take walks between 5 and 6. Perfect. I'm gonna just shoot a quick call. Just pick up the phone real quick at 5:10 when that person's on a walk, and we'll likely pick up. Do something creative like that. If you are hitting up walls and you just can't get through, and then at some point you're just gonna have to make a judgment call. it's just not working out anymore, and just be gracious about that. And it's okay. Not all relationships work out. It's about finding that fit. And sometimes that takes time. And as long as you're gracious and respectful, and you give it a genuine attempt at least trying to maintain a relationship, I think you'll be fine.
Thank you both. That's some really valuable advice. I didn't even think about, oh, mode of communication might affect it. Or I think in most cases, it's usually not you personally, but some outside factor that you could take into consideration and just go from there. And then I wanted to pass it back to Matthew for our final questions.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that we're running close to our end time for the panel, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. But moving into Q&A, if anyone would like to submit questions, Francis and I are going through them right now. Our first question is from Vanalee Kayabyab. She is actually super cool. She's my co-chair for the Filipinx Law Students Association at Davis. And her question is, for me, it's been difficult in this Zoom context to make genuine connections like you've talked about. Do attorneys have high expectations for these Zoom coffee chats? How can I, as a law student, make the conversation feel less transactional? And anyone who'd like to take over that question first, or take it on. Mark, would you?
I'll jump in because I suffer, like a lot of us, from Zoom fatigue. But at the same time, if someone reaches out to me for a phone call or wants to get on a Zoom, I will absolutely do it. It's still limited in terms of building that relationship we've all been talking about. The hard part is for me my suggestion is to find a way to safely meet in person. And I know that sort of goes against COVID protocol, but if you can golf, like Mika said, if you feel comfortable with outdoor dining, I will remember someone who sits in front of me much more than someone who I had on a Zoom. Now, actually, I will say Zoom is probably more memorable than phone calls. So whatever you can do it, but know that a lot of us, particularly after 5 p.m. when my two kids are still outside, or outside my door, it's very hard to focus. I've actually started going back to my office to be able to sort of do that. So, you really do have to try to stay visible. And I'm not recommending you do unsafe practices, but if you want to be memorable, it does take more than phone and Zoom. And so hopefully, you can do that safely soon enough.
Thank you, Mark. Did anyone, Jen?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think what's most important, in really building meaningful relationships is to really know that, we're all human, right? When you make a connection about just, especially during this time, right? Just knowing that folks, are really just aiming and wanting to find connection, I think will help in something not be so transactional, right? Like making sure you just check in on like how somebody is doing, or like congratulating them for, winning an award that you know of, or something, a life event that has been showcased on like a newsletter or Facebook or something like that, right? I think that would help in making a conversation less transactional and moving forward in something that is more meaningful, and that is a friendship, a relationship, and not just hey, I need this from you, please.
Thank you. Rachel and Mika, do you have any thoughts?
I echo both what Mark and Jennifer have said.
The same for me. And one of the things that I've noticed with some of my students who want to connect with me instead of just a Zoom or through Zoom, what they do is if there's an activity that they're involved with, and let's say they're at home and they're doing something with their kids, sometimes they'll tell me, this is my family. Today I'm helping with my daughter with this, and I guess it helps me remember, more specifically, give me a sense of what they're about. Then I see their daughter, and I feel like maybe we're in the same space, right? Live. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it's better than just that one screen, right? Because then you're seeing them actually engage in a particular activity. So I think that's a creative way that some of my students have tried to connect with me, is for them to share what they're doing at home.
Thank you. And it looks like we'll have time for one more question, and it's from an anonymous attendee. They're asking, how does a mentee navigate opting to not proceed with a piece of advice or recommendation from a mentor? So I guess how often or how can you tell you should maybe take an advice with a grain of salt? And this is open to anyone to answer.
I'll start here. I think have a lot of mentees. I think that's actually a very good question, because just because someone you look up to says something does not mean it's something you're going to follow. I've followed so many different types of advice, but ultimately it's going to be up to you. But the more people you talk to, the more practicing attorneys and different types, in-house attorneys, law firm partners, judges, the more of those people you talk to, the more you realize what you are are looking for in your practice. So I think more mentees, that's how you kind of decide which advice to follow.
I completely agree with Mark. It's better to have, a pool of people that you can ask the same question, and you can kind of get a sense of, what their answers are. And another thing is, you want to make sure that the person who's giving you advice, really does have the credibility, right, and the experience for that specific advice. So, for example, you're not going to go to a transactional attorney to ask about trial tips, right? You're going to make sure you direct the questions to the appropriate people, and then get a sense of what the others have given you as far as the answers, and just compare. And sometimes it's trial and error, right? You are going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and that's okay.
And really rely on your judgment. You've gotten this far. Be confident in your judgment. If you're hearing something that just doesn't make sense, don't follow it. Understand that people are infallible. No one's perfect. And what Mika said is dead on. Use your judgment. If you're seeking advice, and I really like that example, for trial tips, you're not going to go to a transactional attorney who's never been to trial. It just use your judgment. Be smart about it. And it's okay to not follow a mentor's advice. At the end of the day, your decisions and your choices are your own. And your mentor is hopefully going to help guide you. And part of that means helping you think through things so you can make your own decision about what to do. And at the end of the day, it's your life, it's your career. Be confident in your judgment.
Thank you all so much for this question, all the ones before them. We're going to start wrapping it up, and just to let everyone know, our next session is going to be a chat with the Honorable Judge Ibarra and Mari, who is the FBank president. So I hope you all can join us for the final portion of the conference, and also join us for happy hour at the end. Matthew, do you have any final words?
Just to reiterate, thank you all for your time in attending this panel, and to our panelists for sharing all of your insights. It's been an honor to be here with Francis and sharing this Zoom chat with you all.
Wait, I have one plug though. Make sure you sign up for an FBank mentor if you haven't yet. And if you do have an FBank mentor, shoot them an email today, right now. Just check up on them. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Francis
Thank
and
you
Matthew,
so much, everyone.
Thank you to our wonderful moderators.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.